So we're living in a great time at the moment for video game adaptations, but especially adaptations through animation.
Yeah.
Castlevania, Cyberpunk, the list goes on. What why animation for this project, and what freedoms did it allow you when you were adapting Tomb Raider?
I think creatively, one of the things is it allows you to go as big as the Tomb Raider games go with nowhere near the budget it would require if it was a live action show. But you're right. I mean, I think animation allows for creators like myself who are genuine fans of the series to kind of do their thing with a little bit less. Um, I don't want to say interference is kind of the wrong word, but it allows us to kind of have our playground that we know and love as fans, because it's not as much of a risk financially, right? It's a much more affordable to make, and because they're now being made by fans, they're really good. And so now more and more people are like, I want to do that. I want to follow in the heels of Arcane and Castlevania, right? So yeah, you're right. It's extremely exciting.
Hey, Tasha. Sean Tasha from Nerdtropolis. I absolutely love this series. I'm excited there's going to be more Lara Croft in the world. This is exciting. Can you talk about the first time you were introduced to her and Tomb Raider and the decision to make the series an extension of the Survivor video game trilogy?
Yes, those answers are separate. I was introduced when I was a kid and I played some of those 90s games. I mean, Legend is the one that like sticks out the most to me as sort of the most memorable when I was younger. And then the second part of the question is how did we decide upon this part of her canon, right? For me, it was kind of an easy pick just because that's the part that I was most curious about, having played the Survivor series, which were amazing, but also having loved those early games. Those are two different Laras that we got. And so I really wanted to know how she became that person. And so this show kind of slots right in that space, building her from that Survivor Lara that we got to know, that really cool origin story, into the woman we fell in love with when we first met her.
Yeah, hi Tasha, John from Nerd Reactor. And watching this, I was like curious on the setting for the show, right? I was like, is this going to be like a reboot of the game? Or is it going to continue on? And as I'm watching this, I'm learning like, oh, it's right after, what is it, a Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And so what was it like, just getting to continue on with the story with the characters like Jonah and Roth, etc.
It was super cool. It was super cool not to feel beholden to who we met or who we saw in the Survivor series, or even who we met in those earlier games. We got to, in a way, create our own universe, but pick people that I remember really loving. Like Zip makes an appearance, right? And he's from those older games, and I just missed him so much that I wanted him to be a part of the show, but also loved Jonah so much. And these are all people who know Lara. Why not put them in the same universe? So it's super cool. And yes, no one should expect it's just a rehash of a video game. It's its own Lara. It has its own story. It fits in the canon in a really cool way. And hopefully we do something both new and also something that we all remember loving.
Suhaila from Temple of Geek. So this adventure takes Lara all over the world. What do you think constitutes a good and engaging Lara Croft adventure? And how do you decide on which location she's going to go?
Yeah, this show is definitely a travel show. It's something I love about the video games is you have no idea where you're going to go next. Even within an individual game, it doesn't always just take place in the same location or same country. And I really wanted to honor that idea. Also, I get bored very easily, so it was nice to be able to just like take her to all these really incredible places. But for me, I have a degree in history. And so it was really important for me that wherever we were going was based in something she uncovers as part of the mystery of this history detective that she is. We would always talk about Lara as a detective. When she walks into a space, she sees things the way Sherlock does that none of us really do. So it's really cool to see her put the pieces together. And that's what really prompts her to go to the next phase, rather than being like, I want her to go to Morocco today. It was never that way. It was what new clue does she discover that drives her to this new location? Yeah. And it was super fun to be able to just sort of jet set with her everywhere.
Hi, Tasha. Chad Canuck with Man of Many. This season is all about finding balance. How did you approach discovering that balance behind the scenes in the writing and the animation and the overall tone of the show?
That's a great question. The Lara that we met in the Survivor series, there was a lot of disruption in that Lara. She was willing to usher in the apocalypse because of all the things she was dealing with personally. So knowing we were having to take that Lara and do a show about her, it really became about what do you do with a woman like that? How, and it was very nice to like meet her at a low point because she is this kind of super heroic figure. So it was important for me that the show started with her not being in that space because that's not where she is at the end of those games. But to find and power her way through to become the strong person we know her as was really important as her arc. And for me, it's about less about finding something external for Lara and it's changing what's going on inside for her. So that's really what it came down to is her learning to be. And here's another part of it, Chad, is that I know we have to push her into becoming that confident person of the classic era. How do you get there? It's not a direct line. And so a big part of that is she does have to do a lot of self-work and discover that confidence within. So it kind of was a no-brainer that the thing she actually had to fight the most, the sort of biggest villain, was really what was going on inside, as cheesy as that sounds.
You worked with Powerhouse Animation on this series, and I know that you also worked with a team that was mainly comprised of women. What did that mean to you, and how much did it affect the final result?
It was awesome because there was just a shorthand with everyone who worked on the project from Powerhouse because not only did they play the games when they were kids, but like me, it sort of like became part of their bloodstream in a way and really informed who they were as people. And so to be able to revisit this character, the world that she explores, it was just so cool to do it with people who had as much respect for her, as much admiration for her, who got emotional at all the same things I got emotional about. I wasn't the only one who was kind of being a weirdo when we would get Lara to this really emotional place. We sort of all felt it together. So it's just really cool to have a shorthand with these women who, were transformed by the game as much as everyone else.
So obviously Haley Atwell voices Lara in the series, which is incredibly exciting for fans of the franchise, but also of hers. What qualities did she bring to the character that makes her portrayal stand out so much?
What Haley brings to Lara is Lara. What's cool about Haley is she is Lara Croft in real life, and that's just sort of a fantastic find for us. I mean, I loved her already from Agent Carter when she was Peggy, and just seeing her be able to balance her comedic timing and the levity she brings to that show with also the drama that she's capable of. Also, she was incredible in the action. Like she's everything that sort of this middle phase of Lara is already. And then when you meet her as a person, she's like actually an action hero. Right. I mean, we've seen her in Mission Impossible. She does a lot of her own stunts, guys. It's crazy.
I want to talk about the design for Lara Croft because like you mentioned, you're paying homage to the OG games and the new stuff, and then we get to see her different outfits from the newer games and the old stuff. So what was that like in terms of balancing that out?
One of my favorite parts about the series in general is how many outfit changes we get. We get to go to the Arctic and we get to have those cool jackets, and a lot of the designs were homages to outfits that we all loved from the game already, but also trying to take it a step forward and trying to explore this is a new Lara. She's going to pick new outfits. We don't want to see her in all the same stuff. So it's fun to sort of give everybody a taste of both because that's what I wanted. I'm servicing myself as a fan, I think, in that respect.
All right. How did you go about creating the mythology around the Peril Stones that actually takes us on this worldwide adventure? And were there any real world inspirations that you took that inspired this?
There were, yeah. The sort of process of writing started with a lot of research. It became very important for me, just as a history nerd and as a Lara Croft nerd, because I do think that a lot of the stuff we see in the games, it's very cool that it's grounded in something real that you can sort of do more deep dives on. So I wanted to pay homage to that realism. But just for me, it became important. So the Peril Stones are real. And my hope is that when you do watch the show, you do get to Google things and be like, oh, what is that? Like, where does the show differ from the truth? And what kind of sort of mythologies are there that have been interpreted in an interesting way in the show? And so, again, I'm a history nerd. So when there are history lessons also in shows, I'm like all about it because my curiosity is ferocious, and just as Lara's is. So everything you see will be based in something that is real out there, which is bonkers.
The series really allows the storytelling to guide the adventure. It feels very immersive. So I wanted to ask about how you approached bringing that sense of gameplay and the sort of very effective nature of video game cutscenes into the writing.
First of all, bless you for saying that, because wasn't sure if that would ever come across, right? Because that's always the danger of video game adaptations is you're not playing it. You're not first person, you're not Lara Croft, you're watching Lara Croft do things, which is incredibly hard. And I think the way to bring audiences into that similar sensation is to just really invest them in character, to really find that relatable point for character. And that was my hope with Lara, that you're so in with her, so in her head as she's experiencing the world, that it's as close to playing her in an animated world as you can get. And then we paid a lot of homage to, not even homage, I mean, we fully went there for the action sequences and really trying to bring all of the elements that I like, all the set pieces that I really remember loving from those early games in particular, and just her unique moveset to all of the action that she had. So hopefully in that regard as well, it's bringing up those familiar feelings of having played the game.
And the main villain in the show, Charles Devereaux, is played by Richard Armitage. What did he bring to the role, and what is it about those English villains that's so entertaining?
Sorry, Archie, I don't know what it is. Richard is fantastic, and I've been a fan of his for a really long time. For me, the role of Devereaux was always going to be someone who is a mirror to Lara Croft, someone who is going through a similar darkness, a similar pain, and he's choosing a certain path. And Lara has to face that and decide, does she want to go down that path or go down a different one? So I knew I always wanted a villain who fit that. And Richard has such a unique voice presence, I think. And he has an ability to be both frightening and charming, literally in the same sentence. I don't know how he does it, but that's very much the kind of personality I wanted Lara to be confronted with, someone who was very appealing in a very dark way. And was she going to succumb or not?
So you talked about Powerhouse Animation, known for their dynamic style. What stands out to you about their work on being the right choice for the series?
They're so cool because it was always so fun to send them a script and then to get animatics back and be like, oh, that is a million times cooler than I could have anticipated this being. Again, because they're all fans. So they were feeding off of the things that they loved. And you could tell that there's love in the action sequences, in the moments where Lara's hurting. I know that they loved those equally as they did the action sequence because, again, they love Lara so much. So, I mean, I think the distinctive brush that they have is just like love for the character, which is very cool. And feedback that I've been hearing a lot is from fans who can tell that there is fandom behind the show. And that's, I mean, credit to the team for sure, because they love Lara Croft as much as everyone else out there.